Sahana vavatu, sahanao bhunaktu, sahaviryam karavavahai, tejasvinavadhitamastu, ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Okay, so last week we talked about prayer in general, and someone asked me about prayer, and I wasn't quite satisfied with the answer that I gave because there's more to prayer than just what I said last week. And prayer, the purpose of it is, as we said, it's part of the Vedic culture, and there's a reason for it. It's not some unprovable thing that's just pseudoscience. There's actually science behind it. And see, everyone finds themselves eventually in a position, in a tough spot in life. And the tough spot is not one, it's right, reoccurring. And you figure out that if I really had all of the control in the world, if I could really attract whatever I wanted, then really my life would be working out 24/7. So, but that is not the case in anyone's life. No one's got their life handled 24/7. There's one area or the other that's not kind of working out. And some areas are sometimes up, sometimes down. So it could be health, could be mental. Sometimes you feel dull a little bit, or physically not able, or sometimes you need some connection or some emotional connection. So all these things are fluctuating, and this is how life is constantly bringing you storms, bringing you different weather in life. And what you do then is you come to realize that there are moments when you find yourself a little bit helpless, and you say, well, it's not a pleasant place to be, in a helpless place. It's the question is, what could I do? How can I convert this helplessness that I'm experiencing in whatever area that you're going through into some form of an action that is not only empowering you, but also introduces a new cause, a new variable into the field that comes back in a positive favor. It amplifies the chance of coming back as a positive favor in your interest. And so that way, prayer becomes a means by which you convert your helplessness into an action. So this means there is an action to convert my helplessness. What action is that? Well, it is prayer. And then you say, well, what does prayer involve? And prayer involves three things in the Vedic culture. So the first one is different kind of modes of prayer. Is you can say it can be a manasa. It can be a mental. Manasa is a mental mode of prayer. And this is how we understand it, like gratitude to the Lord, just to express gratitude for your health. And, you kind of have that little bit of that connection with the Lord. Manasa. So that's mental. Okay. And so it's silent. It's nobody really hears you. Maybe you move your lips a little bit, but it is like that. And it's the most common kind of prayer. So we'll put it as number one. This is how we all know prayer. Something that you do silently to yourself, asking for something that is important to you, praying for somebody else's well-being, for somebody that's close to you, or simply asking Ishvara for goodies that are important to you. So there's nothing wrong with asking for goodies, because they enrich your life. And so there's no need to feel guilty about saying, well, I shouldn't pray, I shouldn't ask. Ishwara has already given me everything. Ishwara is already busy and delivering all of these other results to other people. I'm just bothering Ishwara. There's no need to say these things. So, you're endowed with the capacity of a human body, and you have genuine needs in life, and you want to enrich your life. So naturally, prayer is another endowment given to you to make use of, and start asking Ishvara for things that are really important to you, something that you genuinely cherish and treasure. So this means the first step is you actually have to ask. And we have to drop this whole thing of this complication. Don't ask. I don't deserve it. I'm not worthy. Ishvara is not going to hear me. What Ishvara am I praying to? These are all just kind of personal ideas. We'll put a little bubbles. Okay. We have to just pop these bubbles and just ask mentally. The second kind of prayer is what we call we put it number 2, is Vachika. Vachika. And this is oral. So this is exactly like mental, but it's out loud. So sometimes you don't want to just say it inside. Maybe you feel better saying it out loud. For example, you could say, a nice one is Gayatri Mantra. Gayatri Mantra is really Vachika. And you can say something like in Sanskrit, Om Bhur Bhuva Svaha Tatsavitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naf Prachodayat. So if you translate this, you don't have to say it in Sanskrit, but it's nice, right? Either way, as long as you understand what you're saying, it is effective. If you just chant in Sanskrit without knowing the understanding of what the verse means, then you're kind of cutting yourself short. So basically with the Gayatri Mantra, which is a Vachika, because it is out loud spoken, you're saying, Dear Lord, O Lord. You can say, Dear Lord, or O Lord. That's how we begin the mantra. O Ishvara, O Saraswati, O Ganapati, O Shiva, whatever Lord you relate with. Give me a bright mind so that I can think properly. Help me to remove my distortions and my subjectivities in life so that I can make the right decisions when they're most crucial. So it's a very nice prayer that really is asking the Lord to give you an intellect that's capable of guiding you in those tough times and good times, of course, to have that mental clarity, which is what we all want. Okay, so this is Vachika. Now, sometimes you want to do a little bow. So in this case, we will have a third type of prayer, which is Kayika. Kayika, which is physical. Okay. And the most common for this is like a little bow. And when you do namaste, and you're acknowledging your appreciation as a devotee of the Lord, and you need help of the Lord. And so this way it becomes something that's more intimate. So these are the 3 kinds of prayers that we all have available. It can be silent, manasa. It can be out loud. It can be in your local language out loud. And it can be a little bit of a physical activity, which is close to yajna, but to keep it simple, it is a simple bow, or maybe, whatever, physical entails for you, maybe lighting up an incense stick, or whatever kind of, brings you closer to that connection to the Lord. Now, the question is then, what is the difference between a yajna? Now, when I say yajna, there's 2 ways of pronouncing this word. Can you see this on the board? I think you can. So yajna. Now this, it seems like when you say jnanam, jnanam. Now this, I want to cover that, j. Sometimes you can say yajna, it's actually yajna in Sanskrit. However, in Hindi, they pronounce it yajna or jnanam. But correctly, it's actually yaj, j for George, j for whatever, George, right? So jnanam or yajna. And I also fell for the yajna. I usually say both. That's because I've been saying the other version for a long time. So what's the difference between a yajna and a prayer? So we'll put these 3 are prayer. So a yajna is more involved. It takes longer. It involves an offering to the Lord. This one involves asking. You're not offering anything back. You're not offering a flower. You're not offering a flower to the altar of Ishvara. You're not offering anything back. You're just asking. It's very short. It's very easy. It's very simple. A yajna, you actually have to have a sophisticated and elaborate ritual, which can be looked up online. It usually involves fire, but most of us are not going to probably have a fire going on. So you can have something like an altar, right, with a picture of a devata, a devi or a deva. Deva is a masculine and devi is a feminine. So either way, when you say devata, it includes both. So I'll say devata. So you can have a picture of a devata who represents something that you want. For example, I have a Saraswati. Saraswati is usually those who want knowledge, who want to be have a good mind, to have a good mental clarity, to have all of those connections made, and so that knowledge takes place very well. So this is what Saraswati represents. So you can have a simple image of the Lord that keeps your mind on that. And then you can offer a simple flower or some water or something, anything that involves more effort. Now the question is, what's the difference? As we said, yajna takes a lot more effort. And the rule, according to Manusmriti, or even in Mahabharata, there's a line that says, adhikasya, adhikasya adhikam palam. In other words, the rule is the more effort and more time and more energy you invest in anything, the greater the result. So for example, you ask, what's the purpose of a pilgrimage? Like, why walk a long time? Why don't you just put on VR glasses and look at somebody else's recording, right? They probably got a GoPro and just stay in your little sofa with the aircon switched on and enjoy the ride. Well, it's very interesting. I was thinking about this the other day. I actually have VR glasses, they're quite good for education. And I was looking at somebody's journey going up to Mountain Everest, the top of Mountain Everest. And it's fantastic because you can see a full 360 view. You really see what they're seeing. And it makes you feel like you're there. It gives you more reality than if you just see it on a screen. And it's really amazing. You can they're recording their struggle and they're going through this hard time of wind and cold. And they get up and it's like, oh, okay, let's go down. It's like, okay. So all of that just to go, okay, I'm at the top. Now let's go down. And the down part is much harder than the up part because now you have no motivation to get up. And a lot of the deaths that happen are actually downwards because you're exhausted and you got no energy and you can't stay up there. It's so cold. And I was thinking, this is lovely. I don't have to now go to Mountain Everest. I can just take their their experience. It's lovely. But when it comes to yajna, you can't do that because if you go on a pilgrimage, just the fact that you take so much effort and time and walking and energy, walking and thinking, and it's a very unique environment to be doing that, that alone sculpts you in a certain way that no amount of VR or television or YouTube can. It imprints an impression because it took a long time and it becomes your new samskara. And when it becomes your new samskara, it actually modifies your personality in a positive way. And how did that take place? Through a lot of struggle, through a lot of efforts. So this is the principle of a yajna. So next time we see someone doing, whatever their yajna in whatever way, a pilgrimage, there's a lot of science behind it. And this is one of the ideas that is, it changes you in a positive way. Logic of prayer is that it's an action and it's a positive action, and no action goes without a reaction. So this means that it becomes your adrishta palam. It becomes a positive reaction that somehow will help you in the future. And it also develops your devotion. It develops that heart for Ishvara.
Question. In the context of like empathy, and you said in one of your last lectures that empathy is important for generating that wisdom. So when we talk about empathy, increasing empathy or lack of empathy, and how we can bring it in so as to generate wisdom as we go, what we can do, right, in terms of like yajna, tapas, or prayers, or is there some sort of tools available? Because lack of empathy can be very devastating. We see that in corporate leadership, we see that in political leaderships, and it has like a real impact on humans' life and even in relationships as well.
Sure.
So I was just trying to understand what tools do we have in this context that we can leverage.
Sure. So what kind of tools do we have that we can leverage for dealing with, suppose, corporate conflict, or in those cases where you can't really set a boundary, for example. Suppose that you're in a very close, tight situation and you can't quite set a distanced boundary, say, I'm no longer going to see you. That's possible in some situations, but in other situations, that's not possible at all. So you got several options. In fact, I was having a webinar with my teacher yesterday. How do those, it was between Israel and the Hamas, he says, how do I love these people who are only 50 kilometers from me and, they would love to massacre me? How do I deal with that? How do I actually manage that kind of situation? because I can't find myself to love them. And it was a very interesting answer, is that sometimes you just can't do anything about it. And you have to accept that. There's only so much you can do. When it's a close situation, you can sort of set up some boundaries where you say, this is my time for now. Or you can say, I just choose not to be involved in this for now. Or I don't want to share my feelings right now. You may want to share your feelings. I don't want to share my feelings. I'm just not in that kind of mode right now. So you can also, that kind of a boundary. But then what happens when in more extreme situations you can't? And the answer is, how do I look at those people who are willing to hurt me, right? And actively willing to hurt me, and I can't set the boundary because the situation doesn't allow it? Well, firstly, understand that mind is coming from a distorted place. It looks at a situation that is not keeping with what is. There's a phrase that says, hurt people hurt. That means it's impossible to inflict pain or cause or want to cause pain onto another person unless that person is in pain themselves. It's not possible to inflict pain onto another person if you don't have any pain. Only when I'm carrying pain of some sort in my own life that is unresolved, then the way that comes out is it wants to induce or, right, put out pain onto other people in whatever form or shape it is. And so we find ourselves in this field where you have minds walking, right, in your environment, and there is some unresolved stuff going on. And you're like, my God, I can't get rid of this. This is just too much for me. So what you can do is you can pray for them. You're like, I can pray for them? Why would I want to pray to my enemy? Because, as we said, prayer is one more action that you can put into the field. It is whereby I put an action in those times of my helplessness. I'm helpless right now. I can't do anything about this person that they want to actively hurt me, but I can pray for their well-being so that their mind reorients, hopefully by the grace of God, reorients so they recognize that what they're doing is not right. It is not keeping with the moral order, because the moral order is inculcated into the minds of all men and women. But when it comes to a point where you have a yearning so much for connection and love and for connecting with someone else, and there's no way to get it except to put a gun to someone's head and instantly get attention like that, instant love like that. So it compels the person to go through all sorts of violent behaviors to violate these basic rules of ethics, because the underlying issue is, I am in pain. I am in pain. Help me. But not knowing how to address it, the easiest way is to just simply force it upon somebody else, just to bring someone else down, and instantly that temporarily puts me back up. So what I can do in those situations is actively pray for them. I can use yajna or prayer and say, oh Lord, please help this person develop the right conscience so they recognize that what they're doing is actually hurting them. It's actually not helping them.
Yeah, thanks for that, Andrew. That definitely helps. But just in the context of, sorry, I don't want to digress and go in different area, but just like we always talk about Bhagavad Gita and how Krishna helped Arjuna, and like Arjuna didn't want to shoot that arrow at Karna, but he had to do it, right? Because we have to win this war, because otherwise there'll be adharma and whatnot. How do we reconcile this? It's just, you know what I mean, right? It's a war story at the end of the day, but I understand
Sure.
it's
So
much bigger than that.
yeah, so it becomes a little bit more digestible if you take the Mahabharata in the context of today. This is the Mahabharata today. We see this is still the Mahabharata story. It's not once upon a time. We still see, right, the light and that which is in me, which is constantly tearing me apart. I know what is the right thing to be done, and yet I can't get myself to do it, as Duryodhana once said. In other words, there's two sides of me, and I can't quite, right, reconcile them. So everyone is going through this situation, right? And you have to constantly battle that within yourself, because there's these samskaras, these vasanas, these likes and dislikes that want it my way, for my pleasantness. for my satisfaction, but it may not be keeping with the well-being of you nor the well-being of other. But in Arjuna's case, he also has likes and dislikes. You think, look at this, do you think that Arjuna would have put out the whole drama in front of Krishna if Kauravas were somebody that he did not know? If they were not relatives, would Arjuna would have acted if they were not relatives? He would have acted. It would be a lot easier, but he didn't act. Why? Because of emotional connection. I can't get myself to do what is the right thing to do because of my own likes and dislikes towards this side. So this was Arjuna's situation. He was held up emotionally and he couldn't get to do what is to be done because there is a much larger picture in front of me, but my own likes for my own interests deny me from following through what is to be done. So Krishna had to go through 18 chapters to say, hey, Manhirama Karna, Bhishma and Drona, right? Someone even more lovable. But you still have to do, you have to think, I have to raise your thinking above your little thinking of this person.
Me and mine.
Linked to me, Mamakara, right? Me and mine. You have to rise above that. Until I rise above that, I'm held in this sort of kind of a push and pull. I don't know what is to be done. I can't act, I can't speak, I can't communicate because there's a self-interest in one's well-being. And that self-interest is deeply tied into the other person. And so the other person starts to go off track and I go, well, if I get him out of my life, that's going to cost me peace. And I don't want that for myself. So Krishna has to tell to Arjuna, hey, for a moment, this is your little voice, your own like and dislike. It has no actual, it's just a little preference of yours. It's a little distortion. And I have to help you get out of that distortion so you can do what is the right thing to do. And then he goes one level deeper and he says, not only that, not only is the emotional connection an issue right now, which I fully understand how it is in a family. It's very, it's dynamic. There's no black or white here. There's no detach, these simple statements, don't be attached. The wise person is not attached. They're not affected by heat and cold. You have to look at deeper behind that. Otherwise, the person becomes very sort of robotic. Oh, okay. This is a bad situation. Huh? Okay, it's just passing. It's just a passing situation, right? We can't think like this. So it's not sort of this kill or don't kill. It's a very dynamic thing that you have to work through. It's a case by case situation. So no situation is exactly the same. Every situation demands something different from you and out of you. So it's almost like you have to deliver a new self, a new personality out of yourself in every single situation. And Arjuna had to do that with Karna too, but he couldn't for a moment until he recognized the cost. If I don't act, what is the cost? And the cost is only going to amplify itself if I don't act right now. So I may be getting my respite now and feel really comfortable about it, but that respite, that little break is only building a future version of a much harder situation to deal with. And I don't want to be in that future because time is always going forward. Time is not going backwards. So time will eventually push me to be in that situation in the future. So this is what some of the things that Krishna was pointing out to Arjuna. And it's not easy. It's not a matter of just saying, hey, go and do it. I mean, in the perfect world, it will be wonderful, right? Like I said, feel the fear and do it anyway. If you feel the fear, just go and do it anyway. It's a simple instruction. It will be a wonderful thing. But most of us, we're not like that. We're not that direct. We kind of hesitate a little bit, and we need some console me a little bit. Show me why. So this is what Arjuna is going through.
Hi, Andre. Whatever you're saying just now, it resonates with me, especially in what I see on the media in regards to the war that's happening right in front of us, in the world, like Hamas and Palestine. But what hurts me a lot is it's the emotional part of me. It hurts me a lot when I see kids and women suffering with no food and I think to myself, okay, we can donate, but there's nothing immediate we can do. But I find what soothes me is I pray every day to just send that prayer. I tell God You can see the bigger picture in the world. I can't.
Yeah.
I'm only a little dot here, and I'm trying to think of this. It does make me angry. It does make me very sad.
Yeah.
Because it's like we are suffering in that war too. But yet, I don't know how someone could. I mean, we can't say whose side is right or wrong
Yeah.
in this big picture. They all have their own initial reasons to fight. So it really, and I find the only way is to pray. And I find that's the only thing I can give wholeheartedly.
So what Rani is saying is something very interesting, because she's saying that I can't do much, but I can do something. I can donate. Okay, go and donate. I can pray. Go and pray. But to remain as a complaining human being, oh, look at that side, there's war, and to kind of create a gloomy picture and then bring everything else into it, it's totally unrelated. You have protests being held in, Sydney and all around the world. But how many are actually doing something to actually contribute something to the, so you can't quite, it's not categorical. Protests are bad, protests are good. The question is, how much can I do? And do I know when I have done enough? If I don't know, it becomes, you get caught up. It becomes now your problem. You take something from the other side of the world and you bring it over, how many? 5,000 kilometers. You bring it 5,000 kilometers into your own mind. It becomes your own thing. There was in 1970 or something, where the Chinese were, related story, that's what I'm saying, invading Tibet. And they were taking over the religion, killing Tibetans. And one of the interviews asked Dalai Lama, all of this is happening to your country, and how are you not disturbed? And Dalai Lama said, they have taken our jobs, they have taken our policies, they have taken our religion. Shall they take my mind over too? So look at this. Shall they take my mind over too? That's why Dalai Lama was not disturbed. He knew that what is happening, but he refused to internalize this thing. So it's one thing when an event is happening in the world or whatever, locally. It's another thing when that event becomes your own. It creeps under your skin, and now you internalize it, and it debilitates your own beingness, your own, it steals, it robs your own happiness away. So this means that, yes, things are happening. The question then is there something that I can do? If not, then at least don't complain or don't spread more negativity around how bad things are happening and wars are going on, and just make this whole big drama about it. And it affects who? It affects you and whoever you're talking this to. So this means that one has to be clear. What is it? What's the purpose of this conversation right now between the war? What's the purpose? Is it for me to kind of, vent? Is it to complain because I got nothing else to do? Right? What's the purpose? One has to be that clear. And so, right, if nothing that I can do, then, let it go. It's not in your control. Otherwise, you're becoming just one more human being out of 8 billion who is complaining. So how are you any different than anyone else? So in other words, it's not contributing anything to the field, to the Kurukshetra field. Yeah. As I said, an example, I had this thing of, I always wanted to do a little bit for India, right? There was this compulsion, do something for India, the kids who are orphans or victims of child abuse or rape. And I said, hey, this is too much for me. I don't want to go all the way to a different country and do something. I'm just going to find someone who's already doing that and just donate to them. And that much I can do. And so my heart has been eased of this concern, right? Otherwise, we just end up talking, oh, go save the oceans. There's so much suffering. Okay, what are you actually doing about it?
Yeah, I mean, it is in this same war story that the concept of an avatar or an advent of an epoch-making advent is introduced in the epic. So there is always a question haunting everybody, every peace-loving people in the mind, that what is the maximum extent that catastrophe can go, where an epoch-making avatar can take place. The famous sloka, Tadatmanam Srijamyaham, paritranaya sadhunam. So, is it true that catastrophe has its maximum and minimum limits?
Yeah, it's I cannot quite categorically answer that because maximum, it's very relative to tomorrow or yesterday. So there's no quite maximum. It is almost like a wave, just like your own life. You go through a wave, of ups and downs because you come with your own karma. But then you also come collective karma for all of those in Israel. They have to share a certain karma. So you can't deny and say, oh, this has got nothing to do with me, because you are somehow connected to that, especially if it's affecting your country. So first we need to acknowledge this is affecting me in some way, but to what extent is it affecting me? That you also, through that thinking, contribute to that maximum catastrophe. Because maximum catastrophe is nothing but a collection of minds coming together and making a story about what is going on. And you are one of those minds. So the question is, how much are you contributing to that, quote, maximum catastrophe? So this means, right, I don't know how much the maximum is, because you are also a variable in the field affecting the word maximum. And so it comes back onto oneself. What level of control do I have in this situation? I can pray, as Rani says. That is already minimizing the maximum. Now, when it comes to Avatara, we don't need avatars anymore. I know someone would argue this, but avatars are, Ava means down and Tara means to cross. So Ava, down, cross. So the one who crosses down. And, we don't need avatars because avatars were necessary in those times when we didn't have internet, when we didn't have all these books and all of this knowledge well laid out. So you need someone to kind of bring order to the situation. Now there's a lot of order. You look up online, you know exactly what is the right thing to be done, right? So we don't need more avatars anymore. But it's said that every cycle of creation, in those early days when Earth, right, starts to get populated more and more, then you need a certain figure, a certain strong teaching to be inculcated in one particular side of the world, so that it can slowly percolate itself in the future. That's why that's why they're so effective. That's why they have such a huge impact for all human beings. And therefore there's a certain order to it. And one of those orders is to the one who crosses down, a human being, who brings a certain impact to the society. And that impact has an effect, but that impact itself goes through distortions. Because now you can have one group of minds and say, no, that Avatara did not do the right thing. He just made errors. Look at this. How many, you don't have to put your hand up. Praise Gandhi for what he's done. Okay, you don't have to put your hand up. Some hands will go up. And others, what would they say? Oh, Gandhi, made a situation in India even worse than it should have been. Can you categorically say that he's right or wrong? See, there's some things that were done well, some things that influenced in a not well method. Who am I to dictate what ways it impacted and got to the maximum status of whatever maximum means? Who am I? It's based on my own likes and dislikes. The point is, everyone is contributing to the maximum, to the minimum. So the question always goes back to, I love what Buddha says, before you save the world, save yourself. Before you save the world, save yourself. Before conquering Lao Tzu, before conquering 1,000 armies, conquer your own mind. That much is my duty on earth. Conquer my own mind. What is going over there? If I can do something lovely, go take a flight and reduce the maximum in whatever way you can. If you're not a politician, if you don't have that power, then what can I conquer? I can conquer my own mind, at least 5% more. That much I can do. In other words, no moment goes wasted. No moment goes into complaints and, just kind of putting yourself in a helpless spot. Okay, so this means we have to now ask the next question, and that is, well, if all of these things are going on, and wars and prayer, and there's a prayer person, there's a person who prays, there's an object of prayer, there's an offering, there's a yajna. All of these things have a certain reality. And this reality, we said, is mithya. And Krishna, in verse 16, he wants to change our approach a little bit. And he says, a lot of discussions go on about the world and what is to be done and the mind. But once you have to bring a certain inquiry, what are you really talking about? What is all of this, these forms that I'm talking about? What is their truth? What is their reality? And so Krishna brings out two realities: the intrinsic, your intrinsic nature, and the incidental attributes. Incidental, all of these things that we're talking about so far are all incidental attributes. And he gives them a name. He calls the incidental, we'll call it also changing, we'll call it functional, okay, made of parts, and it is dependent on something else. So that's all of this Krishna called asat. Asat, which means unreal, but the proper word to kind of define it a little bit is it's momentarily real. It's only real until you see it, but it changes. So it's no longer that what you saw. So it's only momentarily what it is. It's only momentarily real. And the word for this was, what we said is, we said mithya. Yes, it is unreal, or better word is apparently real. And the word for it is mithya. And the second reality was Atman, which is Satyam. So Atma is your I am, or it means the self. And this word is Satyam. Now, Satyam in this context means independent. For example, you have a white screen, and the white screen is independent of whatever projections are on the white screen. And it's really funny, you know, when we look at a movie on a white screen, the substratum is there, and it is the most important for the entire movie from beginning to end to take place. And yet we get so engrossed in the picture, in the movie, we totally miss out the most important. So this is how it is. This is how it is with the world. You get so engrossed with the forms, with the story, with the wars, with the, right, you know, Arjuna and, you know, this whole Mahabharata story. You get so engrossed, you forget yourself. You literally forget the most important, which is you, self. So now these two show you there's two things, and you're like, oh, so there's two realities. Now the next question is, I have to reconcile this. Reconcile. And how is this done? Well, we'll use a simple example. We, for example, in a pen situation, right, you can take the blue, you can separate this blue color from the pen, and the pen will be fine. The blue will have its one reality over there, and the pen will be over here. So you have two things, different things. But there's a different kind of an example that Krishna wants to show us, and that is with the simple pot. There's no question of separating one from the other. You cannot separate anything here. Here, you have to think differently about it. You have to understand it in a way. How do I understand this as, even though it's one thing, and yet there's two names? And on one hand, there is the substance of it. On the other hand, there is a functional reality about this thing. And the functional reality about this thing, about this object, is what we call mithya. So I can put water in here, and I can pour it, and I can, you know, use it, and I can transact. I can make my life better using the functional aspect of this clay, of this substance. So it's not like now I have to kind of discard or transcend, right, this pot to recognize that it is clay. I don't have to do that at all. There's no question of finding the clay somewhere else. It's not anywhere. It's right here. So the pot, right, doesn't have to look over there or over here, or trying to kind of meditate or close its eyes and feel into the substance of itself. the entirety of this form is made out of the clay. There's not one place where the clay is not. The clay is here before the form comes. The clay is here during the form's existence, and the clay remains after this form changes into something else, like a smaller form. We call this aging. You start like this, and then you end up like that, right? So this means all throughout, there is one substance through and through the entirety of this form. And there's nothing that this form needs to do to find the clay. Why? Because to find the clay implies that the clay is different, that it's somewhere over there. What it has to do is to recognize that what keeps me as a pot, what denies me as a pot, the recognition of my true nature as the clay is my own idea that I am something other than the clay. So this means the pot has this notion in its mind that says that which I want, that which I seek, which is the clay, is somewhere over there. The pot, do not have it right now. And this notion that I don't have it right now is so ingrained in everyone that it basically sends the person on a lifetime of search. And this pot cannot settle because the way that it's made is there's a program in the mind of this pot that is so strong that it cannot rest until it finds the truth. It's not going to rest. And sometimes it's going to, out of its mere love for who and what it is so strong, it will violate norms of ethics because it just wants to free itself from all of these notions that are denying it from recognizing its fullness. That's why when we feel happy, what happens when you feel happy? When you have an experience of happiness, you temporarily come in touch with your fullness, in this case, the clay. And so the person goes, what makes me happy is, whatever person makes them happy. It could be damaging for the society. It could be good for the society. It could be saving lions. It could be helping, Palestinians. It could be helping the Israelis. Right? It could be helping anyone. It could be giving to the other person. It could be loving the other person. And so when you love another person, when this pot, right, loves another pot, what happens? Well, in the presence of another pot, this little pot satisfies and completely validates all of the deficiencies that this pot carries. All of this program of smallness. I'm not good enough. I'm a small being. I'm not complete. I need something to, make me happy. All of these voices that this pot has been carrying for eons, in the presence of somebody else, this pot gets completely validated. In other words, that program of the narrative of smallness temporarily reduces, temporarily silences. And therefore, in the presence of another pot, I say, I love my fullness. And you just happen to be a means to my fullness. I don't love you. I love my fullness. Your wife or your husband, you don't love. What you love is the fullness that you feel about yourself when you are in the presence of somebody else who happens to reduce all of your notions, your deficiencies about yourself, your whole clayness. All of these notions of who I am temporarily reduce. And what you love, what makes you happy, is you're in touch now with your nature as the clay. And then you mistake that and you say, what I really love is the other person. No, what you really love is your own fullness. The other person just happens to be a facilitator that temporarily reduces all of those notions of this pot, which is carrying the notions that I'm not good enough, I'm lonely, nobody likes me, I'm small. So many notions, they get all temporarily reduced. Can you please stay with me? Okay, I will stay with you. And the other pot happens to feel the same thing. So this way now we have to ask, okay, but we're not looking at this from a standpoint of depending on something else. We're looking at this from the standpoint of understanding that right now, that fullness you already are. But the notions that are denying you from recognizing that fullness is your own mind notions. It's not like you're gaining something new. The pot is not gaining anything new. The pot just has to remove the little devils, the little, the rakshasas, right, from its mind, which are making it think, which is making me, the self, think that I am not the self right now. I am a small being. I am not a small being. I am worthless. I am not worthless. I am lonely. I am not lonely. I'm incomplete. I am not incomplete. All of these notions are there for this pot. And these notions, Vedanta burns one by one, one by one, one by one. And what happens? The pot discovers that it is already right now the sought. It was never not the sought. It was already enjoying what it was seeking. This is why we say consciousness, your nature is praptasya prapti. It is already achieved. It's already attained. It's already enjoyed. But what prevents me from the recognition of my true nature, in this case, the pot, we're still at the level of the pot and clay, my own ideas that I'm not enjoying what I'm already seeking. And that bothers me as a pot. And this bothering sends me on a long spiritual journey to seek for the clay as if something that I don't already have right now. And so you have different schools developed. You have schools telling you to go and meditate and try to feel or see the clay in your third eye or in your Sahasrara chakra or somewhere in one of those, chakras. And so you can see how many notions get developed because of this beginningless ignorance that has inculcated all of these notions to every pot, to every kind of pot, that I'm not already that right now. Therefore, to understand, we're still at the level of the pot has to recognize that first of all, I don't deny myself as a pot, because the pot is there. The pot is not an illusion. The pot is not tucham. Tucham means illusion. It is not an illusion. It has a reality. Your body, mind has a certain kind of reality. Your thoughts have a reality. I don't deny them. But at the same time, I recognize by asking one specific question, what is more real, the pot or the clay? You have to put the word more to make sense of the equation. What is more real? If you say that the pot is more real, then what you're saying is, okay, so let me take out the clay. Where's the pot now? No. In other words, the pot depends on something else for its existence. That's why we say mithya, the pot is mithya. It is therefore dependent on something else for its existence. But is that something else different from the pot at the level of the substance? Not at all. Wherever there is mithya, wherever there is pot, where is the satyam? Where is its substance?
In the clay.
In the clay. The entirety of itself is in the substance. So wherever there is part or function or any kind of thought of this pot that it's having, wherever there is mithya, that's exactly where you will find satyam. There is not one place that you will not find, I know, Bao, there is not one place where you will not find the satyam. That means the pot can now start to look in, oh, suppose it has a thought of, oh, I'm not good enough. Look at that. What is the content of, quote, I am not good enough? In this case?
Not realizing.
In this, good, Asha. In this case, the clay, okay? The content of every thought is the clay. Now, when I ask you, let me just bring this down a little bit to us, and I'll go through a proper, like a step-by-step. Suppose you imagine a nose right now, like a nose, just the nose of somebody. Okay, there you see a nose. What is there also? I know the nose is there of somebody who you imagine, but what is also there?
The body.
Well, you are, right? You, the observer.
Oh.
You,
oh, yeah.
Exactly. Oh, yeah, right. You, the observer of that nose, right? So if now I say, okay, get rid of the nose. Now, Okay, now maybe don't get rid of it. Just bring a head now, a nose with a head. Okay, now the head and the nose is there. But what's also there? Me, the observer of the head and nose. Me, the conscious observer of the head and nose. So now show me one thought where you are not there. How about this? I am not enlightened. Huh? I am not enlightened. What is there? What is there penetrating that thought? Who is there in that thought? Me,
The I.
the conscious being. The I am is there. Oh, I'm liberated, suppose. What is still there? The exact same observer, the exact same conscious being that was there when the mind was saying, oh, I'm not liberated. You see this? So the content of every thought is always there as I am. So what happens is now the mind wants to sort of say, no, that's not good enough, you know, and it goes and it kind of makes up some notion that it has to be something more than this ordinary conscious being that I am, this ordinary I amness. Okay, before I move on to the steps to bring this down to the level of the body, I'm going to ask Bao, what do you want to say?
Yeah, it reduces to the fact that until the jiva is able to discover for himself in another dimension, let's say the fourth or the fifth dimension of the reality, there is a Swami who said in the Ramakrishna mission, he made his devotees repeat 3 times, Brahma Satyam, Jagat Satyam, contrasting what Shankara said.
I'm kind of a little bit thrown off here. What's this dimension thing? Different loci?
Unless we are able to consciously or unconsciously consciously cognize the fact that Jagat is mithya.
Yeah. Okay.
You remain in this world.
Yeah, exactly.
And as long, yes.
Yeah, I understand. So that makes sense. So what Bao wants to say is you, right? Right? You, the clay, are everywhere. But as long as my eye is put inside this little pot, then, right, I am as though one of the many in this world. Okay? But actually, where am I as the clay? Where am I as the clay? Everywhere. I'm in all. I'm in you. I'm in the trees. I'm in the birds. I'm in other worlds. I'm in the air. I'm in the space. I'm in the time. I'm everywhere. I'm in every thought. So until the person, right, recognizes their identity, their I is put in this much. And therefore, they participate in the world like this as a little pot. So this is a process that takes place to slowly remove the notions of the mind that is carrying this notion until you recognize what you have, what you're seeking, you already are, and you're never not that. And it's not kind of an acceptance. Oh, okay, I've heard it. Let's move on. Until all doubts are gone, as much as you know right now that your body or mind, that your body is male, you have no doubts about that, or that your body is female. You don't question anyone. You don't say, is my body female or male? It's just ludicrous to ask that. So in that same way, when my identity, right, quote, shifts, nothing that shifts, but through understanding, shifts from myself as one individual to the content that adheres through and through all things in this universe, until then, there will be some doubt, some kind of a concern for more knowledge, more, more kind of ascertaining the knowledge. And so this has to be completely gone, all of these notions. And even after this pot changes its identity from potness to the substance, even then, owing to the samskaras that this pot carries, even then, it still continues to see itself as one of the many. And this is where we say nididhyasanam. Nididhyasanam continues even after you are certain of who you are. So this means continued listening, continued contemplation, continued immersion in the scriptures. So it's not like this romantic thing where you sit under a tree, you have this meditation experience, and you get liberated and it's all flowers from then on. This is good for motivation, but in real life, it doesn't happen like that. It's an ongoing process. But when the identity shift happens, it is instant. From that moment on, there's no, oh, I don't know who I am. Now let me go study to know who I am a little bit more. You know who you are once and for all completely. So suppose you have your pen here and you're looking for the pen, right? So this is called praptasya prapti. I already have what I'm looking for. And I'm looking. So somebody needs to point out to me because I can't see the pen. I can't see my own ignorance. I can't see that which I'm seeking, right? Someone needs to point out, hey, you already have the pen. The moment you discover you have the pen, that's it. You don't go, oh, maybe I should still look for the pen. The whole pen is discovered at once. So just like that, when the identity shift happens, then this pot at once has, right, all doubts in respect to I are removed all at once. But even then, right, samskaras keep on coming, but you recognize now these samskaras are not mine. They belong to Andre, they belong to Michael, they belong to whatever your name is. But, right, out of mere habit, there will be a continuation of working on these samskaras. And so this is the process. This is why we have nididhyasanam in Vedanta.
Is it, I'm just thinking, so in some way is like moksha, or what you're talking about, of shifting the identity. So Atma is pure consciousness, right? And nothing sticks to it. And everything else is matter, subtle matter, like thoughts, even amkara kind of thought. So can we say that even moksha is like a mithya because it's shifting identity and it's
No.
you're just no?
No, I get what you're saying. It's a subtle question. Moksha just means, see, there's only one here. There's no question of two-ness in this example. But owing to my ignorance of who I am, I keep on seeing the one total as just one of the many. Okay, just one individual. So the problem is ignorance. So I have to get rid of that ignorance so that I can see that what I want, I already am right now. Until then, there's a doubt. You can fool yourself all you want. You can say, I've got moksha, I'm liberated now. You can do that all you want. But how do you really know that it's clear? Because there's zero doubts whatsoever. And that doubt means that, I understand. There's no question of me being the clay and the pot being mithya. Can you even say that now? It's just one substance. Mithya is only to help you understand the changes. How do I account to these changes, of these many changes that I see? How do I account of these changes? Well, you have to understand a satya-mithya relationship. So what is moksha? Understanding the satya-mithya relationship between me, the content, and everything else in this world. When that's clear, that's called moksha. When the understanding is clear that the speaker right now and the listener, Ashish, that it's, yeah, you can call it body and mind all you want, but ultimately the content of even your own nose right now, your tongue, your brain cells that are going to reply to me in a moment, all of that is just one content appearing as many, appearing as Ashish, appearing as Andre, appearing as a tree, a bird, the sunlight, as gravity, as different planets, as the air that you're breathing now, as space, as time, right? As a question that's being brought out, which is nothing but sounds, which is nothing but a thought. All of that is just satya-mithya relationship. Now, to help us see how this satya-mithya relationship applies to us, let's do an inquiry. So far, I have been talking about a pot. We have to bring it down to us. We can't just speak about these things like we're not pots here. We're much more complex. So let's take your body, for example. Your body is, right? Suppose you say your body is satyam. It's independent because satyam means independent. Let's see if it's really independent. Is it? Is your body satyam? Is it an independent thing of its own? Or does it depend on so many parts for the body-mind to exist? It depends on many parts. Let's take, for example, your hand. So you take the hand away, you take another hand away, 2 legs away, you take the head away. Where's the body now? Where's your so-called body now that you're giving so much reality, looking over there? Oh, that's an attractive body, right? What is attractive? Is the leg attractive? Is the arm attractive? Is the nose attractive? Is the ear attractive? What do you mean when you say it's it's an attractive body? What do you mean? What part are you referring to? So this means the body, your body that you're wearing now, is made up of parts. Okay, so maybe your arm is more real than your body, because after all, your body consists of your arms, your legs, your head. So maybe let's take your arm. Maybe arm is the satyam. Maybe arm is the final thing in this whole equation. Maybe we'll stop. I am the arm. Okay. Well, your arm is made up of, right, bone, or fingers. We'll take your hand for simplicity. Take the hand. Maybe the hand is satyam. Or could there be more? No, because the hand itself is made up of fingers. Or maybe the fingers are satyam. No, because finger itself is made up of bone, skin, flesh, cells. Okay, so maybe the cells are the final reality. Maybe they are satyam. Maybe they are the final reality that makes up you. No, because a cell, if you analyze it, it's made up of organelles. Organelles are the things inside a cell, like a mitochondria, that is responsible for energy. It's made up of organelles. And we'll take just one of those organelles, like mitochondria. Maybe that's the smallest thing. Maybe that's the final thing that makes up your body. No, because it's made up of proteins. And proteins are made up of amino acids. And amino acids are made up of molecules. Maybe molecules are the final thing that makes up your body. Maybe they are the final reality. No, because molecules itself are atoms. Now, when I look at a body and I say it's an attractive body, what exactly is attractive? The nose, their finger, their skin, their cells, their organelles, their mitochondria, their molecules, their atoms. What are you referring to when you say a body? What are you referring to? Would you mind telling me? Oh, what are you talking about, Andre? I'm just talking about a body. Yeah, but what is a body? So body really has no final reality. If you keep on reducing it, it's just made up of parts within parts within parts within parts. It's just a bunch of cells stuck together to make up the skin. And the skin stretched out throughout the body to give you some impression of, right, a person that's decently attractive. Imagine pulling all your skin away. Still be alive, but nobody would date each other. We'll go extinct. Okay, so maybe atoms are the final products in this universe. No, because even an atom, you can reduce it further. You can go into subatomic particles. Then you get to the stage of quantum mechanics or quantum physics. Now, quantum physics would then say, it's really interesting because we look at the world as black or white. We say it's either up or down. It's either fast or it's slow. 20 kilometers is not 35 kilometers. And if it's 35 kilometers or miles, it is not 40 miles. If it's one speed, it's not another speed. This is how we understand the world of matter. But then quantum mechanics comes in and says, it introduces something called superposition. What is superposition? It says that electron, that is the cloud around the atom, that electron is actually simultaneously going slow and fast at the same time. It's going both vertically and horizontally at the same time. How is that possible? How can you have a single electron going both horizontally and vertically at the same time, both fast and slow at the same time? How is this? We don't understand the world like this. And yet at the level of quantum, this is exactly how it is. So even quantum physics says that which you see in this world, it is totally different at the level of the quantum field. And that difference we call superposition. Potential, it has the potential to go fast and slow simultaneously. In fact, it is going simultaneously. Only when you look at it under a microscope, electron microscope, or you observe it, it takes one single position. Now it's going slow at 35 kilometers an hour. You go, this is the final reality. Electron that's going slow at 35 kilometers an hour. And yet you move your head away. It is now, you stop observing it. It is now simultaneously in all sorts of potentials, fast and slow simultaneously. So even quantum physics says, no, the world of atoms, as you understand, it is way different when you go smaller. At the level of the quantum, it now becomes a little bit fuzzy. It's not so tangible anymore. It becomes more conceptual, more mathematical in nature. And this is just quantum physics. Now, Vedanta comes in and says, well, maybe the quark is the smallest because the quarks make up the electron, which is the cloud around the atomic nucleus. And the atomic nucleus has protons and neutrons. So that's an atom. So maybe what makes up the atom? Show me. Okay, let's go smaller. Maybe quark is the smallest particle, the spinal building block in this universe. So we'll settle with that. Vedanta says no. Because every assemblage that is combined together is intelligent. Quarks, certain amount of quarks come together to form a carbon atom or a hydrogen atom. Certain amount of quarks have to come together. 5 quark up, 2 quark down equals carbon atom, for example. And then when you have atoms, you have a carbon and you have a hydrogen and an oxygen atom. You have to now combine them. 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen, you combine them and you have water. 1 atom out, 1 hydrogen atom out, like 3 hydrogen, it's no longer water. Can this be an accident? Is this the random kind of bunch of atoms just floating around? Now the atom decides to, let's just 2 of us combine with 1 oxygen and we'll just like that make water. It's not random. It's not random at all. Every level of assemblage, there's a combination that is intelligent. You combine 2 hydrogen, 1 oxygen, that's water. Now you have water. How many things is water connected to in this world? Clouds, the sun, the plants. How many things are plants connected to? Animals. The whole hierarchy of animals depends on the plants, which depends on the rains, which depends on the water, which depends on evaporation, which depends on the sun. Now you apply this Satya Mithya analysis to anything in this world, not just the human body. You apply it to any human body, to any object in this world. It's the exact same process. You keep on reducing the sun, nothing but helium and hydrogen. Under high density, called nuclear fission, which is producing a lot of energy. It doesn't matter. The point is, it's a combination, not a random combination. It is a combination that has a lot of use on Earth. So whatever intelligence puts together the sun must also know about everything else that that sun is connected to. Must know about the plants, must know about digestion, must know about the water, must know about the oceans. It has to know how to make ocean water clean enough to be non-salty. So it has to evaporate it and send that into the mountains, falls down by the pull of gravity, forms rivers, and gives life form, water for the animals. So whatever intelligence intelligently puts together the quarks at the level of your body, that same intelligence is thus available anywhere else because it's also intelligently putting together a tree. What is a tree? A bunch of atoms put together, and you have a seed. Now look at this. You grind a seed inside the palm of your hand. Do you find any intelligence in there? Do you find like intelligence popping out, going, hey, I am tree intelligence? Or do you just find pure powder? You just find powder. And yet inside that powder, what is there? Inside those atoms, what is there? Inside those quarks, which makes up that seed, what is there? the intelligence which is able to create a vast world of a tree. And how many things is that tree going to be connected to? The sun, the birds, how deep the roots will go in any particular place. If it's the desert, the roots won't go so deep. If it's a windy place, the roots will go much deeper. How would that tree react to the seasons in the local region? How much water would that tree take in proximity of other trees? All of that is inside the seed. Can you see intelligence that facilitates all of those connections inside that seed? No. All you can see is powder. And yet, there is intelligence because of the mere connection of how that seed is made and all of the things that that final tree will be connected to everything else in this world. That connection, thus, is facilitated by one intelligence that has to know about how to go all the way from a quark, put quarks together, structure them to create an atomic nucleus, an atom, put atoms together to create cellulose, molecule cellulose. I believe that's what the seed is made of. And inside that seed, there is a vast intelligence to create something that is highly, highly, highly complex. So now, can you go and look at a tree and say, that tree is made out of ignorance? That tree is ignorant. That tree has more intelligence than all of us put together right now. Could you create a tree? No, we just look at it. We appreciate Mother Nature. We appreciate the intelligence that has grown, that is appearing as a quark, appearing as an atom, appearing as a seed, appearing as the bark, appearing as the leaf, appearing as the bird, which is also Satya Mithya. You analyze the bird, same story. The whole thing, thus, is one intelligence in whom the whole operation, everything operates. So what does it all reduce down into? Science, atoms, molecules, you name it. Your genome made up of ACGT, another Satya Mithya relationship. You think your genome is the final thing? It's not. The genome is made up of ACGT, nucleotides, they're called nucleotides. And that too is reducible down into atoms once again. So look at this. Does an atom have intelligence? Of course it does. Otherwise, it wouldn't assemble itself into a molecule. Does a molecule have intelligence? Of course it does. Otherwise, it wouldn't assemble itself into cellulose. Does cellulose have intelligence? Of course it does. Otherwise, it wouldn't combine with lignin, thus create a tree. Does a tree have intelligence? Of course it does. It grew out of the seed. And to sustain itself is a long process of 1,000 years, maybe. Has to know how to recreate itself, how to give new branches and new barks, new fruits. And the fruit itself, how many things is a fruit connected to that grows on that tree? Wow. It gives life to the animals. So this means the creator of the tree has to know about the creation of that fruit, has to know about the creator of the bird, has to know about the creation of the bird's stomach. Because if the bird takes the wrong kind of fruit, it's not going to be nourished. So it has to understand what kind of fruits nourish me. What kind of fruits nourish the fish, or what kind of foods nourish the fish is different than what kind of foods nourish the lion. And all of that is this one interconnected intelligence that knows about the fish's composure, construction, knows about your construction, the construction of your heart, of your liver, of your lungs, of your spleen. And he has to create the heart. And he has to know, how is the heart going to counter the forces of gravity on Earth? He has to take into account that also. So therefore, it designs the heart, it designs the brain, it designs the legs, it designs the whole thing. And then it says, now let's put it all together. And then we will have a conscious human being that's able to ask the question, who designed this instrument, which is happening right now? And then it's given a sophisticated enough brain that it's able to think and inquire and actually connect to the words that are being spoken of right now. A cow can't do that because it's not given that kind of a sophisticated intelligence, but a human being can. So this means the whole thing is reducible into intelligence. Is this a belief that I'm talking about? Oh, let's believe in some God, which is intelligence. Let's believe in intelligence. Just look at the world. You can't create anything unless it is growing out of, facilitated by an intelligence that is going to connect it to everything else. And then Krishna says, that is not the final Satyam. Intelligence itself, which is called Ishvara, is not the final Satyam. It is also Mithya. Why? Because even intelligence, Ishvara, depends on the final reality, which is Sat and Chit. How to understand this? Well, in other words, you can't think of anything, any concept without a conscious presence penetrating that concept. If I tell you, for example, think of a nose, that's a concept, that's just a concept, a nose. You say, yeah, great, nose is there. But what's penetrating that nose? I am, the conscious being. And how is this I am known to you? As a self-evident, that's your intrinsic nature. A self-evident I am. Think of any thought, any concept in your mind. It depends on whom? It depends on my awareness of that concept. Depends on my awareness of that concept. And that is just at the level of your own mind. That also now extends across the entire universe. All intelligence depends on one conscious being. Just like you can create a world in your head of trees and mountains. But on who does that depend upon? On the very seer of the mountains, of the trees, of the characters. And that seer, who is that seer? A conscious being, I am. In that same way, the entire universe, which is intelligently put together, which is all operating in harmony and has a connection. You can't think of anything in this universe that is independent of something else. It's all connected within one conscious being. And this one conscious being, we say, is Sat and Chit, of the nature of existence and nature of awareness. In other words, Brahman. Okay, so this is the vision that Krishna is showing us, that if you look at the world, you reduce the whole thing into awareness. So now the question is, there are many things here, many things in this world, and they all come to reduce into one reality. So what is it that an ignorant person knows? Well, an ignorant person, we don't mean to in an insulting way, we just mean they don't know this. An ignorant person looks at forms. Oh, there is the final form, and that's, that's the final form. That's the final Satyam. Kundalini awakening, final Satyam. Spiritual awakening, final Satyam. Anything becomes the final Satyam, becomes the final thing. So in other words, everything becomes a big deal. Oh, I've had my Kundalini rising. Wonderful. I am now liberated. How many things did that Kundalini rising depend upon? Think about it. It depended upon the waking state. It depended upon time. It depended upon your practice of it. It depended upon how healthy you were in that moment. It depended upon so many things. And yet I say, had my Kundalini raising, I am now liberated. It's just Mithya. Mithya depends on something else. It depends on so many factors. And ultimately, all of those factors depend on conscious being who was there before the Kundalini raising took place, who is here now, and who will continue to be there when the Kundalini high is very much over, as it will be. So what's the point of this discussion? The point of this discussion is wherever there is mithya, wherever there is a form, wherever there is a thought, that thought or form is reducible into forms within forms, within forms, within forms, smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. So when I see a hand, it's actually not a hand. It is a finger. When I see a finger, it's actually not a finger. It's just parts like skin and bone. When I take the bone, it's actually not bone. It's just cells. When I take the cell, I can't find the cell. I find molecules. If I take the molecule, I can't find the molecules. It's just atoms. If I take the atoms, I can't find the atoms. I find quarks. If I take the quarks, I can't find quarks. It's intelligence. If I take intelligence, ultimately, that too requires an existence. It requires a substratum. That's why we say knows is, concept is. It depends on its existence. Concept, imagine a nose. Nose is. Why is? Because it exists. Why does it exist? Because it is in the presence of a conscious being. The conscious being exists. The concept borrows from the conscious being. Thus, knows is, object is, intelligence is, quark is, atom is, molecule is, seed is, tree is, bird is. Look at the commonality here. Is. And that isness is your final truth, Sat and Chit. And everything else, intelligence, concept. When I say intelligence, I also mean concept. All of that depends on one existence, which is of the nature of awareness. That's why we say concept is. That means it exists. Seed is. That means it exists. That means it ultimately depends on existence. And how is this existence known to you right now? I am. As your common, ordinary I am. Conscious awareness. Conscious, awareful being. So the ignorant person's view is on mithya forms. And that's where their vision stops. Mithya after mithya after mithya becomes a long discussion of wars and drama and the hero and the villain. And it's just a very interesting thing, right? It's a very interesting thing, a story, the Mahabharata story. But underneath all of that, the wise person, what does Krishna understand? Behind all of these forms, they ultimately reduce into one intelligence. So all that is here is God. When I say intelligence, I specifically mean Ishvara. All that is here is intelligence. And this intelligence has no existence apart from awareness. Therefore, the wise person's happiness, where does it come from? It comes from shifting focus from mithya, because mithya is always limited, isn't it? You look at just the skin, it's not a finger. You look at a finger, it's not a nose. You look at a nose, it's not the mouth. You look at a mouth, it's not the hair. It's always limited to itself. But what does it all reduce into? Intelligence. And what does intelligence reduce into? I am, which is known to you right now as a conscious being. Therefore, a wise person knows that all of these variables in the world reduce into forms, or are forms which reduce into concepts. And because my identity is no longer placed in one of the many forms in this world, one of the many forms, my identity has recognized that all that is here is intelligence, which is manifesting as this person that's listening now. And this intelligence, once again, has its final truth in Sat and Chit. So therefore, understanding this much, the wise person, right, can still attend, doesn't have to skip the pot, doesn't have to skip the form, doesn't have to run away from the form. The wave doesn't have to run away from the ocean to find itself. It recognizes wherever I, as one form, am, that's exactly where the content is. And that content, how is it known to me right now? As I am, I am, I am. So there's no question of running away, going to India, seeking for enlightenment there, like looking for special places over there. Wherever mithya is, that's exactly where satyam is. And where's the final satyam? Consciousness. In other words, you can take any object in this world through this analysis right now, any object, and you apply the same analysis, satya mithya. You look at a pot. Pot depends upon what? Let's go. Who wants to unmute and
Light.
Clay. Clay depends upon whatever, silica, right? Whatever, silica. Silica depends upon molecules. Molecules depend upon atoms. So now, which one is it? Should I call this a pot? Should I call this clay? Should I call this atom? Should I call this molecule? Should I call this satya? Should I call this silica? What should I call this?
Mithya.
I can call it mithya. I can call it whatever I want as long as I understand it is a satya-mithya relationship. I can call it atoms. It doesn't contradict the pot. I can call it clay. It doesn't contradict the silica, nor the atoms, nor the clay. As long as I understand it is a satya-mithya relationship, it is fine. I don't have to deny it. I don't have to run away from it. I don't have to insult it. I don't have to compartmentalize it. It has its place. But I have to understand that it is reducible, 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 reducible. Ultimately, this is nothing but intelligence that you're looking at right now. Nothing but intelligence. And the intelligence, this is intelligence, depends upon whom, for its recognition, for its existence. You, the seer. I, the seer. Now, in the next verse, verse 17, this will be expanded upon, the Satya-Mithya relationship. For now, I just want to chant it. Verse 16, which we haven't, and then we will close. Na sato vidyate bhavaha, na bhavo vidyate sataha, ubhayo rapidrishtontaha, tvanayos tattva darshibhihi.
For the unreal, mithya, there is never any being. For the real, there is never any non-being. The ultimate truth of both the real and the unreal is seen by the knowers of the truth.
Okay, lovely, Bhuvana. So this should make a little bit more sense now. So next week, we will expand upon this inquiry. Purnamadav, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachyate, Purnasya, Purnamadaya, Purnam eva avashishyate. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.